Picture yourself standing in a bustling European cafe in the summer of 1914. The air is warm with the scent of coffee and fresh pastries. Around you, people chat in multiple languages: German, French, English, their voices mixing like a gentle symphony of civilization. This is a world connected by telegraph wires and steamship routes, where a letter from London might reach Berlin in just 2 days. Imagine the optimism in their voices. This generation believes in progress, in the march of human achievement. Electric lights are beginning to illuminate city streets. The first automobiles putter past horse-drawn carriages. People speak confidently of a future where war between civilized nations has become impossible, too costly, too destructive for any rational leader to contemplate. But listen carefully to the undercurrents in their conversations. Beneath the surface confidence, there are tensions. National pride burns bright in every country. Young men speak of honor and glory as if they were tangible things to be grasped. The older generation, those who remember the wars of their youth, grow quiet when such talk begins. Take a moment to breathe in this world, a world balanced on the edge of change, where the old certainties are about to crumble like autumn leaves. Let yourself drift to Sarajevo on a sunny Sunday morning. The streets are decorated with Habsburg flags, yellow and black cloth fluttering in the warm breeze. Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his beloved wife Sophie are visiting this corner of their vast empire, riding in an open car through crowds of curious onlookers. Picture Sophie, elegant in her white dress and broad-brimmed hat, waving to the people. She knows that as a mere countess, she is considered beneath her husband's royal station. At most court functions, she must walk behind him, sit apart from him. But here, today, they are together, and she is radiant. The first assassination attempt fails. A bomb bounces off their car, exploding behind them. In any other story, this would be the end. A close call, a tale to tell at dinner parties. But fate has other plans. Their driver, confused by the changed route, takes a wrong turn down a narrow street. Imagine the awful coincidence. Gavrilo Princip, one of the conspirators, just 19 years old, happens to be standing outside a delicatessen on that very corner. He sees the car slow down, then stop. He steps forward, pulls out his pistol, and in 2 shots changes the course of human history. Within minutes, Sophie is gone, her white dress stained crimson. Franz Ferdinand follows shortly after, whispering, "Sophie, don't die. Stay alive for our children." Feel the weight of that moment, how one young man's desperate act of nationalism would ultimately claim the lives of millions he would never meet in places he would never see. Visualize the map of Europe as a carefully balanced house of cards. Each nation is bound to others by treaties, promises made in times of peace that now demand action in the shadow of war. Austria-Hungary, grieving for their lost archduke, sends harsh demands to Serbia. Picture the officials in Vienna, elderly men in formal uniforms, convinced that a show of strength will resolve everything quickly. They cannot see that their ultimatum is like striking a match in a room full of gunpowder. Russia, Serbia's protector, begins to mobilize. Imagine Tsar Nicholas II, a devoted father who speaks perfect English, whose children play with the same toys as their British royal cousins, wrestling with the decision that will destroy his world. He and Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany are literally cousins, yet the machinery of alliance pulls them toward war. Germany's plan is like a massive clockwork mechanism, wound tight and ready to spring. The Schlieffen Plan demands speed above all else. strike through Belgium to reach Paris before Russia can fully mobilize. But the plan allows for no delays, no second thoughts, no time to seek peaceful solutions. Watch as the telegrams fly between capitals like desperate birds. Willie to Nicky, the Kaiser writes to the Tsar, using their childhood nicknames, begging for a way out. But the mobilization orders are already given, the trains already rolling, loaded with young men singing patriotic songs. By August 4th, 1914, the great powers of Europe are at war. Each leader believed he was acting to preserve his nation. None imagined they were about to unleash the most devastating conflict the world had ever seen. Let me introduce you to some of the people who lived through these extraordinary times. Wilhelm, age 20, German student. Picture Wilhelm in August 1914, standing on a railway platform in Munich. He's tall and earnest, with ink-stained fingers from his studies in philosophy. Like thousands of other young men, he's convinced the war will be over by Christmas. His mother presses a small Bible into his hands, her eyes bright with tears she's trying not to shed. Wilhelm writes to his sweetheart Greta, "We march with flowers in our rifle barrels. The whole world seems caught up in this great adventure." He cannot imagine the muddy hell of the trenches that awaits him, or that he will spend 4 years yearning for the simple pleasure of a clean shirt and a hot meal. Feel the weight of time as the war settles into its terrible rhythm. The quick victory everyone predicted becomes a grinding stalemate. Picture the Western Front as a vast scar across the face of Europe, stretching from the North Sea to Switzerland, 450 miles of trenches, barbed wire, and shattered earth. Between the opposing lines lies no man's land, a twilight world of shell holes and abandoned equipment, where poppies somehow still manage to bloom each spring among the ruins. It might be only 100 yards wide, or it might stretch for a mile, but crossing it becomes the obsession and nightmare of an entire generation. Imagine the sounds that become the soundtrack of these years: the whistle of shells overhead, the rat-a-tat-tat of machine guns, the splash of boots through flooded trenches. But listen also for the quieter sounds: men writing letters by candlelight, the scratch of pencils on paper as they try to find words for the unspeakable. At Verdun, the French and Germans feed entire divisions into a battle that becomes known as the meat grinder. Picture General Pétain's promise, "They shall not pass." For 10 months they hold, but at a cost that staggers the imagination. 700,000 casualties for a few miles of ruined landscape. On the Somme, the British launched their big push on a beautiful summer morning in 1916. Picture the officers, many of them former school teachers and shop clerks, walking slowly toward the German trenches, believing their week-long bombardment has cleared the way. By nightfall, 60,000 British soldiers are casualties, the worst day in the history of the British Army. Yet even in this hell, human kindness survives. Remember the Christmas truce of 1914, when soldiers from both sides climbed out of their trenches to shake hands, share cigarettes, and play football in no man's land. It could not stop the war, but it reminded everyone involved that their enemies, too, were human beings far from home. Picture the world map reshaping itself as new players enter the game. In Russia, revolution sweeps away centuries of czarist rule. Imagine the last czar, Nicholas II, writing in his diary on the day he abdicates, "All around me I see treason, cowardice, and deceit." Within a year, he and his entire family will be gone, victims of the chaos that war has unleashed. But as Russia exits the war, America enters it. Picture President Wilson in April 1917, standing before Congress with a heavy heart. He had campaigned on keeping America out of the European war, but German submarines have made neutrality impossible. The world must be made safe for democracy, he declares, though he confides to friends that war will bring out the worst in American society. Feel the energy as 2 million American soldiers cross the Atlantic. Young men from farms in Kansas and factories in Detroit, most of whom have never seen an ocean, now sailing toward a war they barely understand. They bring with them fresh hope and new technology, but also a naivete that the war-weary Europeans find both touching and tragic. The German Spring Offensive of 1918 is their last great gamble. Picture General Ludendorff's stormtroopers, elite soldiers trained in new tactics, breaking through Allied lines like water through a dam. For a few weeks, it seems they might reach Paris. Then the advance stalls, exhausted by its own success. The war's end comes suddenly. Bulgaria falls first, then Turkey, then Austria-Hungary simply dissolves like sugar in rain. Germany, facing revolution at home and defeat at the front, agrees to an armistice. At 11 a.m. on November 11, 1918, the guns finally fall silent. Picture that moment of silence. After 4 years of constant artillery, the quiet is so profound it seems to ring in soldiers' ears. Birds, which had abandoned the battlefield long ago, begin tentatively to sing again. Let yourself absorb the magnitude of what is ended. 10 million soldiers are dead. 20 million more are wounded. Entire villages in France have been wiped from the map. The Habsburg Empire, which had ruled Central Europe for centuries, has shattered into a dozen new nations. But the true cost cannot be measured in statistics. Picture the lost generation. Young men who survived the trenches but could never quite find their way back to the world they had known before. They gather in Paris cafes and London pubs, trying to make sense of what they have lived through, searching for words to describe the indescribable. Think of the women who kept the world running while the men were away, working in munitions factories, driving ambulances, running farms and businesses. The war has changed them too, given them new roles and new confidence. The old world of rigid social hierarchies is gone forever. The Spanish flu pandemic follows closely behind the war, as if death has not yet finished its work. It spreads along the same railway lines and shipping routes that carried soldiers home, claiming another 50 million lives worldwide. Yet from this devastation comes something remarkable, a determination that such carnage must never happen again. The League of Nations is born from this hope, imperfect and ultimately doomed, but representing humanity's first real attempt at global cooperation. Picture the war memorials that begin to rise in every town and village, simple stone monuments listing the names of the local boys who never came home. Lest we forget, they say. The war to end all wars. As you settle into the comfort of your bed tonight, far from the mud and chaos of those distant trenches, consider what the Great War teaches us about the human spirit. It shows us how quickly civilization can crumble when fear and nationalism override compassion and reason, how the same technology that connects us can also destroy us, how leaders who believe they control events often find themselves swept along by forces they cannot comprehend. But it also reveals the extraordinary resilience of ordinary people, the soldiers who shared their last piece of chocolate with a wounded enemy, the nurses who worked until they collapsed from exhaustion, the families who opened their homes to refugees regardless of nationality. The war teaches us that human beings are capable of both terrible cruelty and remarkable kindness, sometimes within the same person, sometimes on the same day. It reminds us that the choices we make in times of crisis define not just our own character, but the character of future generations. Most importantly, it shows us that even the darkest periods of human history eventually end. The trenches were eventually filled in. The barbed wire was cleared away. The shell holes became ponds where ducks now swim peacefully. Nature and human determination combined to heal even those deep wounds. The men and women of 1914 could not imagine the world we inhabit today, a world where former enemies have become allies, where international law attempts to limit the conduct of war, where we have institutions dedicated to preventing conflicts before they begin. Their sacrifice was not in vain if we remember their lessons that war is never glorious, only necessary sometimes, that our common humanity is more important than our national differences, that the price of peace is eternal vigilance against the forces that would divide us. As you drift towards sleep tonight, let yourself imagine that railway platform again. Not in 1914 with young men departing for war, but in 1919 with survivors coming home. Picture the reunions, the tears of joy, the quiet promises to never again take peaceful evenings for granted. Somewhere in the darkness, a church bell chimes the hour, the same sound that might have marked the Armistice 90 years ago. The world keeps turning, seasons come and go, and gradually the horror fades while the lessons remain. Close your eyes and feel grateful for this moment of peace, this comfortable bed, this quiet night. Remember that you are the heir to all human history, both its tragedies and its triumphs. The same species that created the horror of industrial warfare also created the beauty of poetry, music, and art that helped people survive those dark years. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges and opportunities to choose between fear and hope, division and unity. But tonight, rest in the knowledge that throughout human history, in even the darkest times, people have found ways to care for each other, to create beauty, to maintain hope. Sleep peacefully, knowing that you carry within you the same capacity for resilience, compassion, and courage that saw our ancestors through their greatest trials. The Great War ended, as all wars do. The peace you feel now is the gift they left for you. Sweet dreams.